is our incursion into Iran unprecedented? Or once again, is Trump Jeffersonian? I think so. And we did miss this Easter. We're going to talk a little bit about the rescue, just a little bit, just because I can't help myself. We're going to get to some Nikki Knows Facts. We're going to go into some deep history on America, celebrating 250 years. We got a song review, some shenanigans, and of course, the screw tape letters. So join us today here on Further Every Day as we get into it. John Arthur Fiala for Further Every Day, Signature of Philosophy. To my right, I got Miss Nikki.
Good day. It's a good day anyway.
Yep, it's good to see you.
It's good to be here.
To my left, I got Charlie.
Good afternoon.
Glad to have you
here, ready to go.
And then Steve.
Man, shenanigans are ready, and I am politically incorrect big time today.
We're going fishing today.
We're going fishing
That's
today.
what I heard.
We're going to have some fun. And Rai, the producer guy, how's it going?
I'm good. We're back. Had a nice little break last week. Went to a nice wedding. Saw some family.
Yeah, you
Ready
went
to
to
get
a
back to it.
wedding.
All right.
Easter
Wedding?
service.
A wedding?
Yes.
Weird.
Really?
Weird. Who plans? But anyway, I'm not going to get into it because you didn't plan it. So real quick, a lot of people are speaking, especially on the right. And of course, if you are, if you've been living under a rock, I guess is the only way to say this, you've missed the political war between the president and the right-wing podcast class. And Trump did not go nuclear on Iran, but he did go nuclear on the right-wing podcast sphere. And so I want to step back from that for just a minute because we will get into that. But I want to ask the question, is this unprecedented? The fact that we have a Islamic supremacist state in the Middle East demanding a toll and a tribute be paid for passage through certain waterways. Well, what is the foreign land that is named in the Marines anthem? From the halls of Montezuma to
The shores of Tripoli.
what was that about? What was Tripoli about? Why are we focused on the shores of Tripoli? And why is that ingrained into the ethos of the Marines? It's a good question, Steve. I'm glad you asked. First cut, Mr.
Yes.
Producer.
I did.
We're going to go back to 1801. And I want to kind of compare a little bit Tripoli and Tehran, because as you see, this is not that much different. This is a little bit more sophisticated. It's a bit more modern. But what we're seeing is this waterway has been mined, blocked, and they're pushing people into a position where they have to get a toll. They have to pay a tribute to get through the Strait of Hormuz. So
They have floating toll booths?
they have floating toll booths, more or less. More like,
Wow.
if you don't pay us, we will blow you up, or we will let you our mines that we forgot where we put them, by the way.
I'm sorry, you're talking about extortion.
Yeah, it's extortion. And so really, the more things change, the more they stay the same. This is very, very similar to the issue of the Barbary Pirates. Now, does anyone remember who the Barbary Pirates were and why this was an issue in the 1780s?
That I do not.
Okay, so the Barbary Pirates, they're off the coast of Africa, right?
Okay,
And
yep.
so what they would do is Spanish, Portuguese, English, American vessels would be boarded unless they had paid the tribute or the ransom to the pirates. And I'm being very reductive here, but really this is what was occurring. Unless you paid the tribute, it was bad to be an American sailor or a British sailor or a Portuguese sailor, etc. And so as per the ethos of this show, I want to go back to some early documentation on this. And I want to start off with a letter just to kind of give us, let's go all the way back to 1786 for a little bit. Come with me on a little bit of a trip. And we're going to look at a letter that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Jay. John Jay, if that name does not ring a bell, he was our first what?
He was part of the Federalist Papers.
And he was our first Supreme Court justice.
Yes, sorry.
As part of that, as one of those founding members, he wrote some of the Federalist Papers. And he was the first Supreme Court justice, just absolute unit of a mind. Anyway, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, future presidents both. And by the way, they were some people describe them as frenemies. They both fought each other. They had horrible debates. And just if you think politics is sour now, they would accuse each other of treason and all sorts of horrible things in there.
Nothing's changed in politics.
It's really the same nasty cesspool. It always has.
However, those kind of accusations went a lot further back then than they do today.
I think they do. So, and Adams and Jefferson both had differences of opinion on governance structure, right? So one was more of a federalist, and one was more of an anti-federalist.
Okay, lovely day. I see your comment. That's a most interesting question. Is Venezuela or Panama extortion?
No,
That's-
and I'll say that Panama, we built it.
Yes. Well,
We built it.
and I was telling Nikki earlier, I think when the U.S. was controlling that, that was a whole lot better.
And it went a lot better. But
Yeah.
we'll actually let's dig into those.
Yeah,
questions.
I just wanted to
But
acknowledge
yes,
that.
I'm totally with you on that. I think it is different, and I think we can actually draw a really good parallel because they didn't build the Strait of Hormuz. We built the Panama Canal, and there's a big difference. That was built with blood, sweat, and tears of Americans and many, many deaths. But different issue, different time, and I think there is a similarity, but with a good distinction. I want to get back into cut number 2, Mr. Producer. Let's look at this letter. So, and just going to take some excerpts out of here. The amount, this is from Thomas Jefferson and John Adams to John Jay. That can be confusing. I just wanted to lay this out. March 28th, 1786. The amount of all the information we can obtain from him, this is the Prince of Barbary, was that a perpetual peace was in all respects the most advisable because a temporary treaty would leave room for increasing demands upon every renewal of it, and a stipulation for annual payments would be liable to failures of performance, which would renew the war, repeat the negotiations, and continually augment the claims of his nation. And the difference of expense would by no means be adequate to the inconvenience, since 12,500 guineas to his constituents with 10% upon that sum for himself must be paid if the treaty were to be made only for a year. Pause, Mr. Producer. This is early on in the development. This is during the Articles of Confederation governance. This is before we had a constitutional republic. And we are just starting. These are young men, by the way. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson are young men. They're in their 30s, 20s, 30s, this time frame, right? These are young statesmen who are looking at how do we get through this part of the formation of this new nation when we have to deal with paying tribute to marauders on the high seas. And you start to see that we don't negotiate with terrorists. Concept form with Thomas Jefferson over John Adams. By the way, John Adams, brilliant thinker, loved John Adams. Jefferson was more often correct over John Adams. I think Thomas Jefferson's fears, his concerns, and his general sensibilities tend to have panned out better over John Adams. Really, really appreciate John Adams' thought, and he was a good, godly man. However, in this case, John Adams was much more inclined to pay the tribute and just be done with it. And Jefferson, and we'll see this in the letter between those two shortly, they disagreed on this. But to continue, cut number 3, Mr. Producer. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim man who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. By the way, this is a copy and paste out of, I'll put the link in the description below, but out of history and .com, and the notes from, I believe it's history.com, and the notes from the original spelling. So a little bit of a shift in spelling. It's their religion that they are allowed to lie, extort, and murder the infidel with the express purpose of accelerating global dominance. That is their purpose. And this is where I think Jefferson really started to see, because Jefferson was familiar with Islam, but not necessarily, he hadn't gone through the Quran before this experience. He's getting acquainted with the real world machinations of radical Islam. and I would say in practice Islam. Sorry, my friends and family who are Muslim, but hardcore Islam, radical Islam, if you want to call it that, is pretty brutal to those who are not a part of the tribe. Cut number 3, Mr. Producer. That it was a law of the first who boarded an enemy's vessel should have one slave more than a share with the rest, which operated as an incentive for the most desperate valor and enterprise, that it was the practice of their corsairs, their pirates, to bear down upon a ship, for each sailor to take a dagger in each hand and another in the mouth and leap aboard, which so terrified their enemies that very few ever stood against them, that he verily believed the devil assisted his countrymen, for they were almost always successful. We took time to consider and promised an answer, but we can give him no other than that the demands exceed our expectations and that Congress so much that we can proceed no further without fresh instructions. So remember, this is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams writing to John Jay, who's back in the States, and they are in the middle of talks with the ambassador from the Prince of Barbary, and they are trying to work this out. Now, history shows that we did actually start to pay the tribute. And I think that was ultimately a mistake. But Jefferson did more and John Adams returned, which leads to this letter. Now, we're going from March to July, July 11th, 1786. Go ahead and pull up that cut, Mr. Producer. Number 5. Our instructions relative to the Barbary States have required us to proceed by way of negotiation to obtain their peace. It became our duty to do this to the best of our power. Whatever might be our private opinions, they were to be suppressed. And the line marked out to us was to be followed. It has been so honestly and zealously. It was therefore never material to us to consult together on the best plan of conduct towards these states. I acknowledge I very early thought it would be best to effect peace through the medium of war. Now, he goes on to articulate this strength or peace through strength mentality. And in a lot of ways, it started with Jefferson. In a lot of ways, he had a lot of the formation of America's peace through strength. And he laid it out with these bullet points. Mr. Producer, next cut. However, if it is decided that we shall buy peace, I know no reason for delaying the operation, but should rather think it ought to be hastened. But I should prefer the obtaining it by war. Reason number 1, justice is in favor of this opinion. Number 2, honor favors it. I love that. It will procure, number 3, us respect in Europe, and respect is a safeguard to interest. Pause. I really appreciate that.
Yep.
Respect on the global stage, as opposed to being the subject of a bunch of backwards Islamic terrorists, if I could use that term, for the Barbary pirates.
And this is, to me, this is where that principle
Is in
where,
play today.
yeah, it is. And it's where Obama got himself into trouble because people felt like that he was yielding
You could give it over.
our stand.
Yes.
Our respect was going down. And I think he could have done a whole lot more for his presidency if he had just maintained that.
Yes.
And he did not.
Yes. And so, again, remember, this is American citizens are being held captive. They're being taken as slaves. They're being held hostage. They're being beheaded. Does this sound familiar to Iran? I understand that Israel is benefiting from this angle, and I understand the concern about Israeli money in American politics. Understood. Iran specifically, they are choking off a waterway that is a public waterway. This is not a private thing like the Panama Canal.
This is against maritime
This
laws.
is against maritime laws. This is piracy. This is from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tehran. No different. Tripoli, Tehran. Same principle is applicable here. It is the same thing. And again, I appreciate that one user who points out the Panama Canal. Panama Canal is different because we built that. We treated with Panama to build that, whereas this is a international waters issue, and this is a piracy issue.
And I think to that point, and I don't want to stay here,
Sure.
but to that point, there are tolls for different. Somebody brought up the Strait of Suez. Yep, exactly right. When you look at the tolls being exacted on the different ships going through, we're talking 150,000 to 500,000.
20 million in a matter of a couple of weeks.
That's what's being exacted in the Strait of Hormuz.
And
that's wrong.
And that, so I think this is in America's interest. I believe that this is in the interest of showing a strong face. This, I think, is very Jeffersonian of this administration.
Mm-hmm.
It very much applies. Number 4, he says, back to that cut, Mr. Producer, number 6, please. Number 4, it will arm the federal head with the safest of all instruments of coercion over their delinquent members and prevent them from using what would be less safe. I think that so far you go with me, but in the next steps, we shall differ. He's talking about the future wars between the states, but we'll continue. I think it less expensive, and I think it equally effectual. So just to break that down, remember 1786, we don't actually have a federal government. We have a coalition of 13 colonies that are each their own little state.
And it's hard to get them to come together.
And they couldn't affect a federal income tax. They couldn't federal income tax bad, but just a general tax among the states. We needed something, which they ultimately
needed to pay for soldiers,
which they did with tariffs, which is a protectionist thing. I think it was a good thing. However, as opposed to an income tax, but all that to be said, it was going to provide a stronger America. It was going to provide a less expensive option than being extorted every year, and they could ratchet up the price. And so it's a much better thing. He goes on to say, this is cut number 7, Mr. Producer, to this state of general peace with which we have been blessed, only one exception exists. Tripoli, the least considerable of the Barbary states, had come forward with demands unfounded either in right or in compact, and had permitted itself to denounce war on our failure to comply before a given day. The style of the demand admitted but one answer.
Oops.
Is one answer? Next cut, Mr. Producer. I sent a small squadron of frigates into the Mediterranean with assurances that power of our sincere desire to remain in peace, but with orders to protect our commerce against the threatened attack. The measure was seasonable and salutary. The Bey had already declared war. His cruisers were out. 2 had arrived in Gibraltar. Our commerce in the Mediterranean was blockaded, and that of the Atlantic in peril. The arrival of our squadron dispelled the danger. One of the Tripolitan cruisers, having fallen and engaged with the small schooner Enterprise, commanded by our Lieutenant Sterrett, which had gone as tender to our larger vessels, was captured, and after heavy slaughter of her men, without the loss of a single one on our part. The bravery exhibited by our citizens on that element will, I trust, be a testimony to the world that it is not the want of that virtue which makes us seek their peace, but a conscientious desire to direct the energies of our nation to the multiplication of the human race and not to its destruction. I'm sorry. If you do not see a similarity between the Strait of Hormuz right now with what we are doing with Iran and Tripoli, and you do not see that this is precedented, podcast, I love Alex Jones. I've never been a huge fan of Tucker. Everyone on this panel knows for years I've been like, on Tucker. Candace Owens, all those others, those people aside, this is normal. This is normative for the United States. I don't think the United States should be the world's police in the sense of we want to go and conquer every single dictator. But if they have missiles pointed at our base, that's where our 13 servicemen died. For the most part, I believe the majority, if not entirety, were mid-range ballistic missiles and drones that were fired into American bases. When we have that kind of threat, when we have someone who is holding us captive, who has a gun to our head and says, hey, if you want oil, you're going to have to pay this toll. That's the time for America to act. And we want to do it with the minimal casualties. I think
which we have.
I think this is a net positive.
It's been done with minimum, and this is not to say that if we were told, okay, you can give up 10 people and we'll go through. No, you don't want to see it. You do it for the sake of freedom.
Correct.
That's what you do.
100%.
When you have somebody invading your home, well, okay, you can have your home, but you give up 2 people. No, that's not how we do it. You understand that when you enter the fight, you might lose a person or 2 or 3. But why do you do it? To defend your home.
Yes.
And that's what this has been. You and I were having a discussion with somebody this last week, and we got into this topic. And
Good brother in Christ.
it was. And I think it's really important to note, you must take a look at where Trump stands in totality when it comes to foreign policy. Is Trump all about wars?
No.
No.
He's been anti-war, and that's
Anti-war.
and that's where Alex Jones is saying, "Look, I think that there's a problem with this because he's always promised anti-war." We agree on the anti-war part.
Yep.
The problem is deterrence has evaporated. How do you establish deterrence?
In general, over the years,
How do you establish a deterrence?
you
Violence.
do something. You do something.
Right. Especially with Iran.
Correct.
And that's the only way, because it's been such, over 40 years that we've been dealing with them, and nothing has been deterred with Iran with either a Democrat or a Republican president for over 40 years.
In actually 50, because you can go back to Carter.
Correct.
We've
Correct.
allowed the stupid, someone in the chat, Kitty Kubiak says, we did not start this war. It's 47 years old. I would say it's much older.
Yes, I would agree
is,
with that.
This is a 1400-year-old war, and really Christendom's been fighting this war for a long time, just poorly, off and on, and we have pushed them back, and we've allowed this. I'm getting to the point where, I'm sorry, guys, the Crusades look less and less bad by the day. It's like the entire thing with not allowing our forces just to go right up through Korea and into China. We've allowed this to protract out. And in the last 40-something years, 47 years, whatever it's been, we have allowed this to fester. It's about time that we just say, wait a minute. Either you behave or we'll take you out. Not your people, but you, Ayatollah. We're going to put you in a box. And I like that about this president.
And what is the greatest asset that President Trump has had from day one in his first term? It is unpredictability.
And that's really what the tweet was about. We'll get to the tweet, but Steve.
Yeah, this situation with Iran is not about Israel. This is about the national security for our country. We're talking about how many bases do we have over there? I mean,
To maintain peace.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing what Israel wants for what? I mean,
Yeah, it's
not to protect our own self-interest there?
Yeah.
I mean, really?
You have to understand though, is let me just say this. Scripturally, it says, a wise man foreseeth evil and hideth himself, which means you plan ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So the problem in America is that we're fat, we're comfortable, and we're become very lazy. The people in this generation do not know anything about war. They do not know anything about being uncomfortable as far as an enemy being close.
Yeah.
They've never lived with insecurity. This is America. We are safe. Yes, 9/11 happened, and what was the big thing? Why wasn't this prevented? Who ignored this?
Correct.
So now you have a president who, in his 70s, can see the danger coming, and he has nothing to lose. This is it. I'm not going to run for president again, but I need to get America safe. And most of us don't understand that because we're like, well, we're all been safe.
And
because
we've never lived that.
and yeah, we're not looking overseas. Well, they've never done anything up until this point.
It's the feminization of the culture.
Now, that's a good point that you were going to say. It's
Effeminate. It's the effeminate culture we live in.
because what I was thinking when you were talking there about Jefferson, about peace through strength. Here's the problem, women. You don't think like a man, okay? Men want to conquer. And here is something that does concern me is women who want peace. All my coworkers, I just want peace in the world. I just want peace in the world. I'm with you. I understand that. But men are going to think differently, because if the man overseas who is radical in his belief, he doesn't care. He doesn't care that you've killed half of the leadership or most of the leadership. He doesn't care about sacrificing 40,000 of his own people. He doesn't care. I am not backing down. And it takes that kind of thought process to deal with it. And that's what Trump has. But if you're sitting there thinking, well, this is unnecessary, we don't need to do this, you're kind of living in too comfortable of a world. And what happens is one day you'll wake up and it'll be gone.
Yeah.
So what people forget, and so the red pill movement really has highlighted this. Women have lived in a world, but so have men. We've all lived in the world that was fought for, bought with blood, sweat, and tears and bodies. And we live in this wonderful world in the West where you have safety, security, you have the ability, like the liberal arts are not something that are afforded to you unless someone has died to allow you to live in a country that is secure and there's a stable industry. And there are people who cannot be involved in the liberal arts. I don't care where AI is going. People are still going to have to work. Someone will have to work. You will not have this civilization. Charlie sent everyone in this group a note to, which podcast is that? It's the Founders podcast, or is it the Daily Dose of Wisdom?
Daily Dose of Wisdom.
One of these podcasts, someone was doing an interview.
Didn't send it to me.
And it was in the group chats. Steve, you got to read the group chats. but this one fellow was pushing and saying, well, won't we all be able to have a free ticket with AI? And the response from this Google insider was no. No. Someone is going to always be making the value. Someone will always need to provide the value.
Oh, Diary of a CEO. Sorry.
Diary of a CEO? Okay, Diary of a CEO is a podcast you sent. So many this week that we just look at back and forth. No, it's good. So Diary of a CEO, he did a Diary of a CEO with a Google Insider. If you want to go look up the podcast.
And he was really great insight.
He said, it's just like the China and the BAFTA and all these other agreements where we opened up China to American enterprise, and ultimately we gutted out the American middle class. It's going to be the same thing with AI. And if you're not on the top of it, you will be on the bottom of it. It's the same thing. Someone's always going to work. The idea that we will reach this utopia on earth where work is not necessary. By the way, if you're a Christian, this is not the podcast for it. I'll make a case for it. I will go to the mat with you. You will work in heaven. You will work in heaven. The idea that we will never work again, the work will be fulfilling. It'll be honoring to God. It'll glorify God.
It'll probably be more like the Garden of Eden.
I was going to say, it won't be under the curse.
It'll be Edenic without a curse. But you find fulfillment in a full day's work. That is a beautiful thing. So all of that to say, we live under these naive notions that somehow you cannot have a liberal society without a conservative backbone holding it up. You cannot have this utopia without a God who is just and enforces. And someday he will enforce justice, and it will be brutal. And that is something that we need to come to terms with. On this earth, governments are installed to deal out justice, if I can bring that home. If you have pirates who are killing, raping, pillaging, murdering for the sake of money, okay, these are pirates. Iran is no different than the states of Barbary. Just to bring this all the way home, this is the same thing. These are the same people by ideology, not necessarily by race, but by ideology. These are the same people. This is the same construct, different nations, same ideology, this Islamic supremacy that they are forcing on the people. Either you're a member of our religion or you are worthless and we can kill you unless you pay for it. Same thing. There is nothing wrong with saying, wait a minute, no. You can't scuttle another nation's boats. It used to be, we used to understand, you kill an American, we kill 10 of yours.
Right.
It used to be understood because we used to understand that, like Ms. Nikki was saying, there's a cost for peace,
Yeah.
for freedom. It's deterrence.
Mm-hmm.
And people have just lost that. Case in point, the people who have really seemed to lose that are the podcasters on the right. Before I get too much further,
I want to pick up one
You
thing on
pause
the
it.
AI. So
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but
no,
go ahead.
no, I'm going to get that link to that YouTube.
Yeah.
It's Diary of a CEO. 20 minutes,
Insider.
folks. You need to listen to that. That's number one. Number two, I started reading the book Code Red. That's a pretty strong. I'm almost must read on that at the moment. And the only reason I'm not is because I haven't gotten very far into it. But I can tell you, I had a hard time putting it down. I don't think AI should be scary, but it needs to be controlled, and shame on our government for not instituting the controls.
Yeah, I think so. I think you need to control what the outputs ultimately do.
Yes.
If you publish it, you are liable to some extent for the outputs if the outputs specifically are harmful and not the person's activity.
I've got that link though.
It's like gun manufacturing. If the gun blows up in your face or is liable to, you should be
Right.
You should be prosecuted for that as a
Amen.
company. You can't be prosecuted as a gun manufacturer for what someone does with the gun. But that's a whole debate. I want to
Nope.
kind of come back into
Don't
to
go
this one
down that
for the
rabbit
day.
hole.
Yeah, because it's a far rabbit hole. But peace talks are happening. And I want to go ahead and throw up this cut. This is a news cut, I believe, from ABC 7. This is cut number 10, Mr. Producer. Go ahead and roll that, please.
The two sides are meeting in Islamabad, Pakistan this week, and this comes after a fragile 2-week ceasefire was announced.
As ABC's Karen Travers reports, Vice President J.D. Vance is leading the U.S. delegation.
Historic face-to-face talks today between the U.S. and Iran. Both delegations meeting in Pakistan for talks that aimed at shoring up a shaky ceasefire agreement and paving the way for a permanent end to the war. Vice President J.D. Vance leading the delegation, along with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner. Vance welcomed by Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif, playing mediator, also welcoming the Iranian delegation to the capital of Islamabad. The White House says negotiators are working off of a modified 10-point proposal from Iran. One key U.S. demand, Iran turning over its stockpile of enriched uranium.
No nuclear weapons. Number one.
I like
Another
that.
demand, reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The president posting on his social media platform today saying the U.S. is starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command today confirming American warships passed through the strait for the first time since the war started. The USS Frank E. Peterson and USS Michael Murphy, part of the mine-clearing operation. Iran went into these talks claiming Israel's ongoing strikes in Lebanon on Iranian-backed Hezbollah targets violate the ceasefire. The White House says Lebanon was never part of the ceasefire agreement. Nevertheless, today's talks went on for hours.
If negotiations go off the tracks, to have some really tough language from both sides. But also, if there's an incremental approach taken to these talks, you can expect both sides coming out and kicking the can down the road and asking for an extension.
The war has killed at least 3,000 people in Iran, more than 2,000 in Lebanon, 23 in Israel, and 13 U.S. service members. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
So no one likes to hear 3,000, 2,000, et cetera. No one likes to hear that. 13 American service members, X amount of Jews dead. No one likes to hear that. What I would say is I think it's a good thing that J.D. Vance, of all people, is over there negotiating. Who was the loudest opponent of the operations in Iran?
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance. I think it's amazing. And actually, if you read the there's a New York Times article that came out this week, and they supposedly have inside information. You never know if that's real or not. But what I understand, if this is true, the conversation went like this. The Israelis came in and they said, hey, we're going to do regime change. And Marco Rubio said BS. He didn't say BS. He said this is highfalutin. The only one who was really excited was our Secretary of War, Hegseth. And yeah, he's like, let's do this. You know, he's like
He's
like
ready.
a pit bull.
Yeah.
He's a pit bull.
He is.
He sees it. He's ready to go. Vance said, Mr. President, I do not believe that this is advisable. But if you say go, we're behind you 100%. I appreciate that about Vance.
Yep.
I will say this. It does raise concerns for me. Could Vance maintain the Trumpian, Jeffersonian strong arm that Trump is doing?
And
I don't know.
And I appreciate you wording that the way that you did, because we don't know what Vance's ideas were.
Because
they might have been just as viable. Who knows?
He could have had others, but this is the way it went. And what I appreciate about Vance is that there's a unity.
We're going to do what you
Trump's
said
head.
because you are in charge.
Because you were elected. Because you were elected, and I was elected as your vice president. I'm going
Now-
to give you the opposition gently.
And I don't know if you saw this, but Trump's the talks broke off after 21 hours.
Yep.
So no agreement. And what else did we see this morning? Trump said, that's my straight now.
Yep.
Now, he's not going to keep it. But the point is, he's
going
taking
to lock
control
it
of
down.
it.
We're going to lock it down because, and here's the other thing. A lot of people want to say Israel is mucking this up. Maybe. And by the way, guys, could you lay off for 5 minutes while we finish this negotiation and get it locked in? What Vance did was very eloquent and elegant. He said, hey, Lebanon was never a part of the ceasefire. It was specifically with Iran. And he almost looks at the camera and goes, it has nothing to do with you, Iran, does it? Huh? Like you guys aren't really funding Hezbollah, are you? Huh? And
He should have done that.
He almost did. I think he's a little bit more measured than I would be. But then again, that's why I'm not vice president.
He probably wanted to do that, but he was probably informed by advisors to go.
He's polished. He's more polished. I would say, why is Iran worried about what's going on in Lebanon, huh? I mean, it's not like you guys are funding Hezbollah, is it?
You know,
it has nothing to do with you, right?
Know, and in talks with his advisors, that was said.
So, probably. So I think it was a good move on the part of Vance. I think Vance did a good job with that. I will say I think the Israelis need to kind of be good friends right now more than ever. They need to make sure that they're not undercutting our talks for peace, because even though Trump is on his second term, it would be better for them if a Republican were in office than a Democrat next round, because there's no Democrat on the list who would actually perform in the interest of America in the sense of a global peace the way Trump is doing right now.
A good bird. You're funny. Isn't Vance a Marine? I'd trust a Marine, but then I think of Robert Mueller, so there's that.
So
I
appreciate it.
Yeah, I heard that Iran had mined the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, that was the first image, yeah.
And they were having a hard time removing those mines.
They just dropped them all over the place without even mapping where they were dropping them. So we've got those Lockheed yellow torpedo-esque minesweepers running around trying to clean it up, because right now it is an actual shipping hazard.
Oh, man, yeah.
The Iranians, I mean, I really don't understand why anyone could be on Iran's side. Speaking of which, we're going to go to the Sunday tweet, and we're going to go to some of the fun stuff. The American podcast class has absolutely lost their gosh darn frickin' minds. Okay, I'm holding it in here, and case in point is Tucker Carlson, and this is what he had to say to Trump's rather crazy tweet. I liked his tweet. Tucker didn't like his tweet. Go ahead and play it.
Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the F word on Easter morning? You'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah.
I love that.
So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. Okay. If you seek a religious war, that's a good idea. But by the way, No decent person mocks other people's religions. You may have a problem with the theology. Presumably you do if it's not your religion, and you can explain what that is.
False.
But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself. And we should never mock that.
Incorrect.
Because at its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it. We won't be here at the end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it because we are not God. The message of all faith at the biggest picture level is the message in our Bible, which is you are not God. And only if you think you are do you talk this way.
Incorrect.
But it's not just mockery of Islam. And no president should mock Islam. That's not your job. This is not a theocracy. We don't go to war with other theocracies to find out which theocracy is more effective. We are not a theocracy. And God willing, we never will be, because theocracies corrupt the religion. No, this is a mockery not just of Islam, it's a mockery of Christianity. To send out a tweet with the F word on Easter morning promising the murder of civilians and then saying praise be to Allah without explaining any of it, you are mocking me and every other Christian because we're Christians. We can't support that. That is evil. That is an intentional desecration of beauty and truth, which is the definition of evil.
So I actually want to read a Bible verse real quick here. And it came to pass at noon, Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is God. Either he's talking or he's pursuing or he's on a journey. Perhaps he sleepeth and must be awakened. Some translations say maybe he's relieving himself. Look, I'm sorry. God is a God of sarcasm. God will mock the wicked. He will mock. Now, do I like it that President Trump went blue and you use that language? No. I'm not a fan of that, but I really appreciate the fact that this guy is a New York.
He is a New Yorker.
He's a New York real estate guy. And you know how we said it, praise be to Allah, like you Ayatollahs say. That's what he's doing. He's less mocking Islam and much more mocking the way the Ayatollahs speak. If you ever read a press release from the Ayatollahs, what do they say? Praise be to Allah, inshallah, blah, blah, blah. They have that, they have that affectation. Trump was doing exactly that. And it's funny. It's funny.
It's hilarious.
This neo-Puritanism that Tucker is, it's a form of wokeism.
So it's not something I would do in a sense, but anybody who understands Trump, am I giving Trump, yeah, you should have done that. No, I'm not. But when he said that, I didn't really take it as he was meaning in personally toward other Islamic people. However, when you say something, you give people opportunity to come back and mix your words up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Bible does talk a lot about how you say things and what you should say. And,
there's a time to mock another God. And we see that in the Bible. And there are some things that are prescriptive and some that are descriptive. I think that was prescriptive. There is a time to mock the leaders of a foreign religion. There is a time to mock people who are the figureheads of evil. And if that involves, praise be to Allah, like, you know what? I'm fine with that. I think he knocked it out of the park. Of course, I don't like the language. I like the amount of force and the amount of he's delivering a message. And he's knocking it out.
I like what Tim Mull said here in the chat. And Tim, you're bringing up a really good point. New York is different than the rest of us. And let me say this, and I could be wrong. So Tim, I'm not gonna speak for you here. But for anybody, and I am one, that has dealt with New Yorkers, they are different. They cannot help but open their mouth. And they will get pretty rude about it. That's New Yorkers. And by the way, I'm from Western New York, not New York City, but I've dealt with a number of people from New York City. When I look at Trump and what he's doing, I understand it. Do I like it? No, but I understand it. And I also understand that he has his best heart at mind for us. Now, we can all disagree on how he goes about doing it. We can all disagree on that. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, I promise you, I don't care where you're from. If you've got a New York City person that is in a fight with you, you're in good shape.
If they're on your side.
If they're on your side, you are in good shape. So I think it's fair to say that we don't condone the way that he has said things,
as long
per
as
se.
you're not a liberal.
But he is doing things that is
He's doing it correctly.
He's doing it correctly, and he's doing it the Trumponian way.
He's doing it correctly. I've got a lot of Christian friends who are cops, and they say, if you don't tell the person, put the mother effing gun down, and you say it, the person won't put the gun down. Look, I'm not excited about coarse language. I'm going to give the guy the leeway, okay? I think this neo-puritanical...
please put that down.
Yeah, it's just, you know what? There's a time...
They're not going to listen to that. I'm telling you.
Speaking of people not listening, I actually really, really found a little bit of Schadenfreude. Okay, I have never been a huge Tucker Carlson fan.
Can I say something about that?
Please do.
Okay, so here's my problem. Do
you want to say it before or after the video?
I want to say it before.
Okay.
Tucker was going after President Trump personally, and that's what he's been doing.
Over and over and over and over.
And I don't understand why you're trying to divide the Republican Party.
I'll tell you why.
What is it that you're trying to do? You can disagree. We just sat here and disagreed with what President Trump said without going after him in a personal way.
Here's what it is. Who makes the most money in the pundit class? The people who are those in power or those who are out? In the pundit class, who makes the most money? Who has the best ratings? Those who are on the out. Those who are not the controlling party. Tucker rode that wave when we were the out.
Oh, that's true.
And now that we're in, him, Candace Owens, Alex Jones, need I go on? They're all having to be contrary and stir up controversy about Brigitte Macron, about Erica Kirk. Look, two things can be true at once. Okay. I don't know what's going on with the audit over at Turning Point USA. There's a real question there. I think there should be an audit done. You know, Charlie Kirk wanted an audit done. I think that should be done. Everything else that I see from about Erica Kirk is just bonkers. I'm sorry. How is Tyler Robinson taking the fall and his parents setting him up all to get paid out by Erica Kirk in the back end?
That don't make sense.
They're having to go to ludicrous extremes, and it is fracturing the right. We need to unify on what's true, on what's expedient. Okay, it's like we can have an intramural debate in the church about Catholic doctrine, Protestant, Baptist. We can have a debate about that. But at the end of the day, we're all fighting a bunch of craven lunatics who want abortion outside of the womb, euthanasia. They want that, right? Get it together. Like, don't split over those issues as a church. As a conservative coalition, get it together. There are disagreements that we can have. And I think Trump showed a lot of restraint. He only got into the debate. It's unsurprising. It is surprising for Trump that he stayed out of that war only until they specifically spoke to something that he was doing in Iran. Only then did he wade into the podcast wars. And I'm amazed that he's exhibited that self-restraint. Normally he can't help himself. He just jumps in with both feet, right? 2017 Trump would not have waited this long.
Right.
Thank God he's learning. He's getting better because that would have been a mistake.
You know, these pundits, really the ones that make the most money are the ones that are creating controversy or dealing with or in the middle of controversy.
Yeah.
Big time.
You have to, as a pundit, be involved in controversy. It's hard to say, yeah, you know what? I think the administration did a generally good job on this and move on. It's hard. You have to provide value in some other way. You have to be an investigative journalist. You have to be providing historical context. Not just what we're trying to do here. We're trying to actually provide you, hopefully, with some trivia, some understanding, and maybe some apologetics, some cultural prowess to exert in your Thanksgiving talks or your talks at the water cooler. However, these other people, they have to thrive on that. And that is done poorly for Tucker. And so I want to get to cut number 12, Mr. Producer, because even CNN is noticing this. It's pretty rough what's happened to Tucker. Where's my audio?
Oh, no.
Here, turn me up.
Uh-oh.
Okay, restart it, bud. Restart it. Restart it. Okay, go ahead and go, and then turn it up.
Let's start off with Tucker Carlson,
More.
who has been in absolute free fall with Republicans. I mean, just take a look at this. Look at this trend line. Tucker Carlson's net favorable. Back in March of 2024, when he and Donald Trump were very close friends, look at this. He was at plus 54 points. Look at where he is today at only plus 7 points among Republicans, and that includes GOP-leaning independents. I mean, that is a drop of, 47 percentage points. My goodness gracious. When you go up against Donald Trump and you want to appeal to the Republican base, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go on the grinder, and that is exactly what has happened to Tucker Carlson, who has absolutely collapsed.
I love this guy's energy.
So if it is a choice between the president and Tucker Carlson among these voters, what do they basically say?
Yeah, they choose Donald Trump basically every single time. Look at this. Okay, the exact same poll, this UMass Lowell poll. Look at this. Net favorables among Republicans. Again, this is Republicans plus Republican-leaning independents. You see Carlson on the right side of your screen at plus 7 points. Look at where Donald Trump is at plus 61 points. And this is actually a little bit low for Donald Trump. In other polls around the same time, he was even higher than this. Again, he is crushing Tucker Carlson. What is this? This is a 54-point advantage for Donald Trump over Tucker Carlson when it comes to who is more popular among Republican voters. And of course, this is even just talking about the MAGA base, where Donald Trump is running an approval rating somewhere between 97 and 100%.
Okay.
So, by the way, all of that's interesting. I just want to know, where does this man get his coffee, and where can I buy some? He's like so excited. He has so much energy. I love this guy. I know he's on CNN.
I do too. I love watching him. He gets so excited.
Whatever his politics are, that guy has stage presence. I enjoy it, actually. He's got some phenomenal stage presence. But if you take a swing at the king, you best not miss. And I'm sorry, I think most people are realizing there's something odd about this. And you were saying before we got on, it's concerning. Is Tucker bought out?
I did. Well, and I've heard other people say that. I don't have any backup to that. He does apparently been to Qatar, and he's got a house in Qatar, which seems strange. He had the discussion with Huckabee and with Cruz, and the way he was leaning in about Christians and freedom, sometimes better in Qatar. And it's like, what are you talking
It was
about?
always weird. And I'm old enough to remember in 2026, he had a guy named, I think it was, I can't remember his name. He had a gentleman who was a 9/11 truther, right? He's saying like, look, there's some serious questions about how much involvement our government had. One of these 747s flew right over the White House. And if you understand the amount of air defense, I'm sorry, the Angel or White House Has Fallen or whatever series is laughable.
Yes,
if you understand how much protects Washington, D.C., and the fact that an ADAS would have immediately shot that aircraft down unless there was some sort of cooperation. See, a criminal element in our government, say like a deep state, which we're all now kind of more familiar with, right? I'm old enough to remember Tucker Carlson castigating him. It's like, oh, well, like, you're not even American. Like, how could you even do that? Are you like a communist? And his lack of ability or interest in actually debating on the merit was such a turnoff. He would always attack the person.
So Dearman asks, do you people think that Iran would be any better negotiating without all the bombing damage and destruction of military resources? I would say absolutely not. And the reason being is because they have no desire to negotiate. They're not interested in it. They are interested in one thing and one thing only: the destruction of America, and probably Israel first, then the destruction of America.
You've got those back. You're missing one step. Those are means. The end is the 12th Imam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Yep. They're hardcore 12ers. They want the 12th Imam. Yep. They are eschatological accelerationists in the regime. So there are ideas that are not compatible with this liberal Western culture, or a culture in Christ, which all liberal Western cultures are built on, is the peace that Christ brings. It is a anti-Christ culture. Yeah. I'm not making a claim about the Antichrist per se, although I think it's an interesting idea that the Muslim Antichrist might be a very compelling one. Don't know, but it's not compatible. It's just, you can't negotiate with some people. They are religiously against peace.
That's right. I was going to say, before we get off the topic of Tucker Carlson, is Joe Kent, that just recently, how interesting that he resigns in the same day, gets on Tucker Carlson's show. And I do have great pause because Tucker Carlson's son works for J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of leaking that's been going on.
Who knows?
And so that I have pause. I mentioned my son. He wasn't impressed with me. But I said to him, I said, and I like J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't break his ties with Tucker Carlson, I don't think I could vote for him.
I've got my questions. I would vote for him over, say, a Hillary or an AOC.
In the Republican Party.
But yeah, I agree.
And his son might be, and to give his son the benefit of the doubt, he may not even have the same mindset that his father had.
Correct.
Maybe.
So we need to give him that benefit there. But I have pause. I have pause.
It's worth looking at and avoiding.
Yep.
So with that said, let us know in the comments section what you think about this, your thoughts on J.D. Vance as a future candidate. Does he have the stuff that Trump has, or would a Marco Rubio primary ticket be better? Don't know. Not looking to seed, some sort of discord within the family, because both Rubio and Trump have kind of endorsed a Vance first ticket. I do think it's interesting. I'm actually a big fan of Hegseth. Honestly, like, that is my sleeper candidate. I think Hegseth would be an amazing president. He's got a lot of baggage, though. Tell us down in the comment section.
I think Rubio is very strong. I think I'd be fine with J.D. Vance. That would be a very interesting scenario.
It'd be interesting. So I hope that they come out with some unity. And then also, if we made any sense, Tripoli and Tehran, I think they are very
T's are together. Yep.
Very comparable. Not the same people group per se, but definitely the same ideology. And so I think that that's a serious comparison. Take that to you, to your workplace, to the cooler talk, or if you have one of those awkward liberal family situations, bring that with the dinner table, because this is not unprecedented. This is normal in the scope of America. Should it be normal? Well, then you got to get to the question of, can you have peace without a little bit of strength?
John Arthur, it's like you're talking international waters, and Iran is doing just like they did back in the 1700s and 1780s or so, and they're doing piracy. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
That's it.
It's piracy.
That's it.
And every country has a right to be able to deal with piracy on international waters.
Nuclear pirates.
Let's hope they get on their laurels and do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait on the.
I mean, it's international waters.
Yeah.
So moving on to a lighter topic. Gonna do some Nikki Knows Facts. Stick around.
Oh.
Yeah, here we go.
We're at 150 years in America. And this time we're going through 1832 to 1835. What happened here with our slides?
Yeah.
Are those the right years?
You know why?
Nope.
You know why that happened?
Speed.
No, the link that you sent originally was to an older program.
Oh, was it?
And I had to recopy the slides, and guess which slide I did not recopy?
Got it.
I am so sorry.
We were actually
one of these days I will get this together. I'm maybe for the last
one of
the last one.
Do it for the last one. Only
Nikki Knows Facts. First fact.
Here we
Moving forward.
We are going to travel from 1846 to 1865. The title of this one is called A Nation Divided. Now, during our journey, we're going to find out that this was a very intense time in the United States. And, we always use the word transformative, but as you can see, every time we talk about what happened during this period, something major happened. And by the way, I am not doing 14 years. I am doing a 20-year span because I missed last week and I'm going to miss a couple weeks in May.
Bless you.
So during this time, we're going to find more expansion, discovery, conflict, and ultimately a civil war. And let's find out some 10 key events that happened during this time. Number one, we're going to go to the Mexican-American War, picture number 1. And the dispute started in 1846. And of course, it was between Texas and the Rio Grande border. And it was, there were just problems back and forth during that time. However, the U.S. forces won major victories, and eventually the war ended officially with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Now, here's really interesting. If you looked at that map, Mexico gave up nearly half of its land, including California and the Southwest.
Put the map up.
The U.S. paid $15 million. And of course, look at how the United States, it just grew, just like this. I mean, that's major territory there. However, it did reunite arguments about the slavery in new territories. Remember, that's always been a problem since the beginning of America is slavery. And we'll say that this may have leaned a little bit toward the American Civil War. Not sure, but there's problems because they're always concerned about not becoming, they wanted to keep the free states and the slave states on an equal balance. They did not want more slavery. Going to number 2. Here we go. Gold and growth, the California gold rush. So in 1848, we have gold discovered at Sutter's Mill. That is a replica of Sutter's Mill. Do you want to know how many people rushed to California during this time?
I want to hear it.
An estimated 300,000 people, and some of them came from overseas.
That's it?
No,
just 300,000?
That was a lot for America at the time.
At that time.
Yes.
Yeah, but you remember, and here's why I say it that way. You're talking about the promise. Wrong word. You're talking about the opportunity to be, quote unquote, forever rich.
And land.
In land.
Yeah.
Yes.
In land.
Yeah. So we do find out that the California population exploded. I'm sure Mexico was really disappointed that they lost that land. It's discovered gold.
You know what? I think it's a blessing of the righteous. I think the more godly
would agree with that.
I think the more godly country. I know I'm biased.
Keep going.
So San Francisco grew into a major city during this time. And of course, they do talk about, more of the native people suffered violence and displacement with all the people migrating west. But this population explosion actually helped California become a state in 1850. So that was, one thing leads to another. Then we have in 1850 the Compromise, titled The Compromise of 1850, A Fragile Peace. Now look at the sign here. Watchmen and police officers of Boston, for since the recent order of the mayor and aldermen, they are empowered to act as kidnappers and slave catchers. If you remember Harriet Tubman, the
Underground Railroad.
Yes, and getting slaves to free states. Well, the compromise, and this is where the compromise comes in, okay? They're always concerned about the balance of free and slave states, but California did come in as a free state, but the Fugitive Slave Act was strengthened because of this, and this forced citizens to return escaped enslaved people. We have to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is ugly. This is ugly stuff. But for many Americans, this was not a compromise. This was a moral crisis. And really,
the importance of morality really shows up here.
Yes. And some of the problems that we have today in our political world, they were having then.
Same problem.
Yes.
It's the same party. It's the same ideological people. It's just like Tripoli and Tehran.
Yes.
It's the Democrats and the Democrats. Continue.
The D word.
Dang.
Well, we're going to talk about that too.
Same dang people.
It reduced some of the friction, the conflict at the time, but it did not solve the crisis.
Stop placating Democrats, you stupid House Republicans. Continue. Sorry.
Yes.
It doesn't work. just rip the Band-Aid.
In 1858, next one. The famous book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. I did read Uncle Tom's Cabin.
So did I.
Yep.
Yes, that was hard. It was 1858, honey, not 1852.
Did I?
It's okay.
We'll live.
We'll live. I got it here.
I'm going to lose my
I just
job.
want to tell you that
I'm going to be off the show.
I'm going to dock your pay.
Yeah.
So it was written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and it described the brutality of slavery. She did a really good job. And I will tell you, I can only read a little bit every night because I can't handle when one human is being mean to another human, and there's a lot of meanness in it. It became a bestseller in the North, but it strengthened the idea that we had to get rid of slavery in America, the Northern people, and it made the South concerned. They were like, okay, we're going to keep slavery, and the North is like, we got to get rid of it.
But it was an economic thing too. I mean,
yes,
they were looking, and this is the morality piece. You can't treat another human like they're just a dollar bill.
You don't have the moral foundation in your society to continue. If you do that, you've stripped yourself of that right.
This is where the term where blacks call others that help out whites an Uncle Tom.
And I don't know why, because when you read the book, Uncle Tom is a symbol of Jesus Christ. Because at the very end, I want to tell you some of the things that were said in there. At the very end, Uncle Tom actually dies. And the young servant, actually not the servant, but the slave owner, the young slave owner, went to get Uncle Tom and bring him back. And Uncle Tom died. And he comes back to the plantation and he frees all the slaves because he was so moved by Uncle Tom and his life and everything. And he tells all the slaves, he said, that's Uncle Tom's cabin. And every time you walk by that cabin, I want you to remember the price that was paid for your freedom.
And that's why the Democrats, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, took that story and they twisted it,
perverted it.
Just as they take, it was used in minstrel shows. That's where it came from. You asked, it came from minstrel shows that Democrats and the KKK-esque people, that ilk, they took it and they mocked a character that they named Uncle Tom, and they tied it to that to break down the beauty of that story. It's like Disney with Prince Charming. It's not a conspiracy that they swapped. It's just a nature of bad people do bad things. Go figure.
Yeah.
And they hate the image of Christ.
Yes. And one of the things she does say at the very beginning of the book, Southern Christians believed that they were justified because Black people did not have souls. Now, that's interesting because in our apologetics, we talk about the soul. And so they said, God doesn't care what we're doing to Black people. They don't have souls.
Do you know where that came from? That came from 1800s Germany, from the left wing of the Enlightenment, the same thing that branched the American left's eugenics and Hitler's eugenics.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. But she says at the beginning of the book, she says, can you not look into their eyes and see that there is a soul there? So this woman really stepped, 1858.
Yeah.
She really stepped out to do this. Now, Abraham Lincoln met Harriet, and he said to her, so you're the little lady that started the war, because this really upset the Northern people about slavery. Okay, let's move on to the other one. Dred Scott versus Sanford. 1857. This is just a terrible case too. So Dred Scott sued for his freedom for his wife and his two daughters. They had lived in Illinois and Wisconsin for 4 years, and slavery was illegal there. And there was a law in the books that said that for an extended period of time, slave owners gave up their rights to slaves under the law. Okay, so they were there for 4 years. They were in a free state. So he sued for their freedom. And the first court in Missouri said, yes, you're free. And then the Supreme Court of Missouri said, no, you're not. And so he went to the Supreme Court, the federal court. And on a ruling 7-2, they ruled that enslaved people were not citizens.
Oh my gosh.
Terrible decision, horrible decision. And they had no rights under the Constitution. It also said that Congress could not ban slavery in territories. There you go. You got your judges overstepping their
role.
Their role.
That's a legislative power.
That's right. Now, this did strengthen the pro-slavery forces. However, it outraged many Northerners, and it damaged the trust in the Supreme Court. I can understand
why,
because we're getting ready to hear the birthright citizen thing coming up. And there's been some things through the Supreme Court that I've not been happy with. But we can see this goes back many, many years. So a year later, I do want to say that Dred Scott, he did pass away a year later after that from tuberculosis. That's what he died from. Let's go on to the next one. Here's another one I don't understand. People say John Brown. John Brown. I thought John Brown was a man that was hard on, killed slaves or something. This was John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. This man went to extreme action. In 1859, he gathered some men. They led a raid on a federal arsenal. And what he wanted to do was to spark a slave uprising. But the plan did fail. His actions did send shockwaves through the nation. Some saw him as a hero. Some saw him as dangerous.
It's like someone who burns an abortion clinic down today. It's the question is was it expedient?
So his goal was to seize weapons at Harper's Ferry, and actually 10 of the men, he had 22 men, 10 of them were killed during the raid. 7 were tried and executed. 5 did escape. Do you know who led the forces that captured him? Robert E. Lee.
I was about to say.
Robert E. Lee did. Now, I have to tell you, we a couple weeks ago, we talked about the young black preacher that killed 55 white people in 2 days. He was trying to lead an uprising. Slavery is terrible. Slavery.
Some of the responses to try to abolish slavery were also terrible.
Yes, it was.
Some of them were.
So you can see during this whole time. By the way, he did ask Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. We talked about them. Harriet Tubman was ill, and Douglass said, "This is a suicide mission." And he was right. Douglass was right. It was a suicide mission.
And even worse, it is off-putting even to people who are on your side if you kill women and children.
Yes.
And it's when you start a war, you have to take that into consideration. When you start an uprising, you have to take that into consideration.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's go on to number 6. The breaking point was the election of 1860. And who became Abraham Lincoln? Do you know you probably know this, he was the first Republican president.
Yep.
The Republicans known as the anti-slavery,
anti-polygamy party. It was the two pillars of barbarism, slavery and polygamy, are what the Republican Party was founded to defeat.
Well,
and he's a young-looking guy there.
Yeah.
And he aged a lot.
Presidency does that too.
Short 3 years, 2 years.
Especially when you're in the middle of a civil war.
Yes.
So the southern states saw this as a threat. And that's what did they begin to do? Secede.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right, Pat?
They tried to.
Well, from the Union. So here, the southern states thought they were going to lose power. Who was the first state to leave the Union?
That was South Carolina.
South Carolina. Other southern states followed. And politically, the nation divided, of course. Everybody knows that.
But that case went to court, and the court said, no, rip, it's not valid.
What wasn't valid? Secession?
The secession.
And so there's an interesting question as to whether or not someone can secede. I think Texas is the only one with the remotest ability to.
And I've looked into that, and actually they are not.
You would have to make an appeal to specifically some Articles of Confederation for Texas, which are supposedly, according to the argument, they supersede the agreement that was made when Texas entered. It would be very hard for Texas to succeed, but it's the only one that's remotely close.
It's always been bantered. And Texas is not the only state to threaten this.
I'm favorable towards Texas seceding. I am very favorable.
All in favor, say aye.
I'm in favor of kicking out California.
About to say, as long as you can pass the civics test, which most California.
Oh, hello.
So if you can pass that, you can be admitted if you are living here. If you can't, shove off.
Agreed.
Bon voyage.
Out, and then when you can, then maybe we can talk.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
Sorry.
So we're a country in turmoil, and we're going to move to 1861, and in the Charleston Harbor, we have Fort Sumter. And guess who? The South Carolina militia decide to fire on Fort Sumter. Sumter.
The North.
Did you know? I didn't realize this, and I'm a history person. I guess I forgot this. I didn't know they surrendered the fort. They surrendered the fort at that time. So what does Abraham Lincoln do? He calls up for troops. More states join the Confederacy, and this is where the war begins. Now, this is interesting because this is in America. Civil War pits a brother against a brother, family against family, and this became known as the deadliest conflict in American history. Now, everybody wants to say it was about slavery. Slavery was a main topic, but it was about state rights and federal rights. Let's keep that in mind. It was about the federal government telling states they could no longer have slaves, but states did not want the federal government telling them what they could and could not do at that time. So slavery was a big topic, but it wasn't just about slavery, because I want you to think about something. If you're a poor farming boy in the South and you go fight this war, you don't own slaves. You're not fighting for the guy with a plantation to keep his slaves. That doesn't affect you in any way. You're fighting because you want your state to be able to make its laws and not the federal government telling you. So you need to think about that. I know we all want to say this is about slavery, but it wasn't just about slavery. It was about states' rights and federal rights. All right.
I'll just throw this one thing in there, just to say, states' rights to do what? It's always states' rights for the Democrats. It's someone else's body, but
well, it's true.
I'm not saying all. I had family in the South. Most of my family was from the South, but just going to put that in there. It's always about states' rights.
When your family watching the podcast?
Some of them. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, next one.
Some of them.
What do we got here? The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. I love this. This is
the
freedom.
Date's right.
The freedom redefined. Now, he declared freedom for enslaved people in the Confederate States. This is the big thing of it, because even if those states came back into the Union, I shouldn't say if, I should say when, those slaves were free.
Yeah, it was a military tactic, a very strong one.
It was awesome. It also allowed black soldiers to fight for the Union, and it really hurt the Confederacy morally and politically. It also discouraged European support for the South. That's a major importance.
Because a large part of it was specifically on tariffs and trade and the way things were set up. There's a significant amount of the economic side that had to do with the way we were handling tariffs. And so European interests absolutely played a part in the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this also paved the way for the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution.
Yep.
So, all right. Moving on, I had to do this one. Charlie and I took our two oldest boys to Gettysburg, and there was a 3-hour tour. Maybe I've said that to you before, but we are big history people at our house. We spent 8 hours that day going through the whole battle. We went through, we got out, went through, the fields and everything.
I'll bet that was neat.
It was an incredible.
We spent 8 hours there.
Incredible day.
It's a religious experience.
And you know what?
Yes. The heaviness.
Yes.
When you walk out there.
Yep.
I can imagine.
It's like a cloak that you're breathing through. There's something about the air.
It really is.
I can imagine.
And there was a barn
there. And if you can, go ahead, tell that story.
There was a barn there that had a cannonball hole still in the barn from the Civil War.
Original.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was very interesting.
Oh, interesting.
To look at the lay of the land, and I think the only thing I wish that Nikki and I could have done and the boys was gone and spent a little more time at Little Round Top there, because that was the pivotal moment in my mind. That was the war.
It was.
That's where it all changed. Chamberlain was in today's politics. He definitely was an independent, and he was such, but he was also one that believed in the North's cause. And to see what he did at that battle, and to really, in my opinion, his leadership in that changed the direction of what happened. And it could have ended right there.
It could. And I was going to say that is that one of the problems that President Lincoln had was to get a general who would actually be aggressive. And the Gettysburg was the largest battle in the Civil War. There was actually anywhere from 93,000 to 104,000 Union soldiers and 71 to 75,000 Confederate soldiers. And roughly 1 in 3 men died that day, mostly from the Confederate. It was I think it was probably one of the first major Union victories. And when Lee retreated, they said that he was so weak that if the Union Army had pursued him, it would have ended the war that day. But they did not do it. They did not do it.
And it went on another 2 years.
But that was the turning point. Before Gettysburg, the Confederacy was really stronger. They won more battles than the Union Army did. And that day was the turning point for the war.
But it really speaks to the issue. If I could just stop you for one more moment, that speaks to the issue, though, of leadership. Because Lincoln was not pleased with how things were progressing. And when you look at the difference between a Trump first term and a Trump second term, it's different. Why? Different leaders.
Different leaders. Absolutely.
Different leaders.
Also,
absolutely.
Emergency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our last one. Okay. It was actually, that is supposed to be April 9th. That is my mistake, not Charlie's. Lee surrenders to Ulysses S. Grant. And it happened at, Charlie, say that word for me. The app.
Where I can't read it. I'm sorry. I've got my readers on and I can't.
I can't say that word.
Show me the word. Help me out. The Appomattox Courthouse.
Appomattox. Okay. I would get
sorry
over that one. It is what it is. So that was the end of the war. Now, news didn't travel quickly. So there were still some Confederate armies out there that hadn't completely surrendered. But in time, I think within 30 days, it all came to an end. And then became the difficult Reconstruction era.
Which would have gone a lot smoother if a Democrat hadn't assassinated Lincoln. I'm not a huge Lincoln fan, but I would say that it would have been a lot smoother.
Yes. So one thing I do want to say is that even though the Civil War ended in 1865, the years that continue to shape our country, I mean, there's a lot. We won the war, no longer had slavery, but we still had a lot of issues that had to be taken care of.
See, I am a Lincoln fan. And the reason being is because
I think he was a human who made some very, very bad calls.
Oh, I won't.
In addition to some good ones.
Yeah. And to me, though, his stick-to-itiveness for seeing the difficult issue of slavery through, that is on the level of a Whitfield.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, Ulysses S. Grant, when he got him as a general, he was very happy.
Grant was an amazing general.
Grant did well, but Grant made a lot of people mad because he was very forceful and he was aggressive. It cost a lot of bodies in the process.
And and everybody gets upset with Hegseth. And what is he?
He's a bulldog.
He's a bulldog.
He's a bulldog.
So there you go.
So keep following along for the next few years. We're going through the 250 years of America. So make sure you're coming along for the next Nikki Knows Facts.
We need a big thing for the Sunday before that.
And we need to go a little bit faster. Steve.
Sorry.
Yes,
So
it's
sorry.
time for shenanigans. No.
You got it.
It's all
I
good.
can't go shoot me a buffalo.
Nope. You're shooting buffaloes.
Stay out my garbage can. I'll keep it to myself.
Apparently, we need to stay out of Steve's garbage can too.
Yep.
Yep.
I got all kinds of stuff to get you if you get in my garbage can.
Fishing with kids. Let's go.
Yeah, Betty. Fishing with kids. All right, Captain, the first one there. Now, the first thing you have to have is the correct equipment for kids. Now, with kids, you don't want to have an open-faced fishing reel like a lot of professionals use. And the reason being for that is that those you have to control the spin on the reel, okay, with your thumb, on how the line comes out. Kids are not able to do that.
Are you telling me that's why my line's always in a knot?
That's probably right. That's probably why it backlashes all the time. Okay. Now, one of the best kinds to use for children are like your regular push button, like a Zebco 303 or one of those, or like a spin cast where you got a little bell on it. And that's usually for ones that kids that get a little bit of coordination with one of the Zebcos with the little push button. And what's good to do is once they start learning to cast is to get a bucket or something that's about 5-6 inches in diameter, put it out in the yard and have them cast to it.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good
So they get used to casting, like something they put on it on the end of the line and have them cast to it.
Yeah.
Some kind of little weight or a lure, and let them cast to it so they get used to doing that.
The lure sticks
So,
to people.
Okay. Yep. Next one, Captain. Now, boys and girls like fishing. Not just boys, but girls also.
I feel like you're talking to the female side of the audience to get them.
Yeah, kind of, because I'll tell you what. I had some granddaughters that could literally put some fish in the boat, buddy. I am not kidding you. Man,
Girls
I'll
like
tell you what,
shotguns,
those
too.
girls
Yes.
could put some fish in the boat, man.
Do not limit your children's interaction with dad and grandpa.
That is exactly right. And I'll tell
Based on
you
the
what,
gender.
girls love to fish. They have as much fun fishing as boys do.
Absolutely.
Take your girls fishing. Doesn't matter how old they are, girls love to fish.
Well, my
Enjoy
granddaughter
it.
Stella at 5 months might be a little too young.
Yeah,
that one might be
probably a
too
little young. I'd start them at like maybe 4.
My
Something right there.
my granddaughter Lexi just how old is Lexi? 11. She just learned about fishing and she loves it.
Oh,
Loves
man,
it.
yeah, I
Loves
bet
it.
she does. Nothing like pulling on the end of a line and a rod bending. Oh, man, it's exciting. All right, next one, Captain. Now, you got a couple of different types of fishing. Fishing on the bank, okay? Now, the thing about fishing on the bank is that you can have the whole family doing it.
Yeah.
The whole family. All of your family.
As opposed to a boat. Right.
As opposed to a boat. Now, with a boat, depending on the size of it, you're limited to the number of people that can be on it, okay? A lot of people have, say, like aluminum boats that 14 to 16 foot, and you're only limited to a certain number of people. Some people have bass boats, center consoles, and you're able to put more people in them. So what you have to do is figure out how many people are in a boat, limit it to that, because there are Coast Guard regulations to how many people you can put in a boat. Now, with bank fishing, doesn't matter. Everybody on the bank, everybody can fish. Everybody has a great time. But the thing is, Dad, be prepared to do no fishing.
You'll be busy untangling.
No fishing. Let me tell you, I know.
Cutting hooks off of people's eyebrows.
No fishing. You won't be doing any fishing.
Now, Steve, hold on just a moment. I think a fun thing here, because we're getting a lot of interaction here.
Okay.
Everybody that's chatting here, tell us what your favorite fish is to catch. Favorite fish. Go ahead, Steve. Keep going.
Yes. Next one, along with bank fishing, there's a few things you got to worry about. Okay. You got
what is
some
that?
unfriendly friends there. That is a snake.
Is that a copperhead? No, I can't
that's
see.
a water moccasin
You're
right
going
there.
to catch yourself some trouble is what you're going to catch.
Yes. Now,
You can get a geese.
with snakes, especially in the spring, when they get moving around a lot on the bank, snakes like to be on the bank, high grass, all of that kind of good stuff around the water. Snakes love to eat fish, and frogs are next to the water. They love frogs. So you have to be very careful with your little ones.
Watch your bank. Yeah.
Be very careful. Keep an eye on all of your kids. Now, little ones love to play in the water.
Oh, they'll wander
Nothing
too.
wrong with kids playing in the water and all of that. That's okay. But make sure you keep an eye on those kids. Make sure the snakes stay away. One thing that's always good is to make sure your kids have a stick with them. Wherever they're at, out in the woods, around the water, make sure they always have a stick. It's a good thing to have. Any idea on fish, Charlie?
We've got perch, walleye, rainbow trout, salmon, bass. We've got red snapper from Boca Grande Pass. We have short, I can't believe I'm reading this.
Nose gar.
Short-nosed gar.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And we've got Melissa.
That's the most relatable one.
Holy cow. You
Any
can
fish-
fish by a water moccasin.
Any fish I
Yep.
can catch.
Any fish that I can catch.
Oh, that's a blast.
So we got a really wide variety there.
Yeah. I tell you what, with me, I don't care what kind of fish I catch. As long as I'm catching, I'm having a blast. Next one, Captain. Boat fishing. Now, the one thing with boat fishing, you got to make sure kids that are under the age of 15 have to wear a life jacket. 15 and under, you have to wear a life jacket. Okay? Safeguard regulations. Coast Guard regulations, must wear a life jacket. Always remember that. Make sure you always have enough life jackets for everybody on that boat, okay? It's very, very important that you have all of your safety gear when you're on a boat. Now, the thing about fishing on a boat, you can get to all kinds of places, different places on the water. Man, you can fish the deep water, the shallow water,
You still got to
all
watch
the different
out
places,
for snakes.
but you still got to watch for snakes, because I'll tell you what,
They'll crawl right up in there with you if your gunnels are too low, if you're in a kayak.
man, I'll
Right
tell
up
you
with you.
what, I've had snakes going across the water and come straight to the boat,
Yep.
man. And they'll want to try to get in the boat too.
Take a little nap, little rest.
You bet.
Yeah, like dead serious.
Yes.
That's what they're interested in.
They want to get in that boat with you. I'm telling you, they do.
Yeah. Thank you. No.
That's for sure. Next one, Captain. And one thing, when you take kids fishing, make sure they're going to catch fish. Doesn't matter what kind, as long as they're catching fish. It doesn't matter what size they are, as long as they're catching fish.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best things to do is to find somebody that has a pond that is overstocked with fish.
It's the
whether
best
it's
feeling for
brim, black bass. Majority of the time, you can find somebody that's got a pond that's the bass are way overstocked and they're getting small. And man, you can go there and kids can throw lures, fish with minnows, and they will catch fish left and right constantly and have the best time. Oh my goodness.
It does so much for a kid.
Man, you are not kidding.
It does.
Gets them away from all of the electronics.
Yeah.
And that is one of the best things. Gets them outside. Whoo, I'll tell you what, all of my kids, all of my grandkids love to fish.
Yep.
I even had one of my granddaughters used to come out and help me clean all of the fish.
You should make the kids always clean their their catches. It's part of learning that
get out there and help you. It doesn't matter if it's the girl or the boy.
An animal died so that you could eat. Don't waste the meat, and understand that. Be connected with that.
My dad always used to eat tongue from a cow, and I never understood why. But it goes back to that. Don't waste it.
Don't waste it. At least use it for dog food.
I heard it's really good, but
actually, it is. I've only had it one time, and it was
delectable,
wonderful.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah, I had it with.
Say that.
It was tacos, and it was some fantastic
tongue tacos.
Miss Nikki, are you okay over there?
Speaking of the tongue, it is time for our silver-tongued producer to put on.
I got one more.
You do?
I got one more.
You got one more?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's
one
the best
more.
one.
And it's the way you end your fishing trip. A family fish fry. Now, the thing is...
What's it? Sorry.
Okay, I get excited over this. Now, what we always did
I tried.
was we would catch fish, and then it didn't matter if you were catching a bunch of small fish, at least bring home one fish. If that's all you want to do for that child to cook up and let them eat one of the fish they caught, even if it's just one.
It's a big deal.
It is.
It is such a big deal for that kid.
Favorite fish?
My favorite? Oh, man, speckled trout.
Rainbow trout.
Salmon.
Rye?
I don't have a favorite fish.
Chicken nuggies is his favorite fish.
I'm going salmon and crappie.
Yeah, I love you. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
It's just me.
Yeah. On to the silver-tongued producer and bring up the cut.
Oh, my.
What are we doing
This
today?
sounds so elegant.
What are we doing today, Brian?
Okay, today I'm excited for this one. Today we are doing songs about whiskey.
Whoa!
Wilson.
What?
Now, before we dive into this song, just hearing that title, what do you think the song's going to be about?
Whiskey.
Drinking.
It sounds like someone is talking, who's critiquing the culture. That's what it sounds like
Look,
to me.
dude,
Okay.
I am been sober for over 25 years now. Last thing we need is whiskey on this show.
If you're just joining us, what's the purpose? If you're just joining us and you're asking, what's the
That's probably
purpose
good,
of the segment?
I got excited.
What's the purpose of the segment? Well, garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out. Whenever you are singing a song or you're hearing it on the radio, it bypasses the logic and reason centers of your brain and goes direct to the subconscious. So what are you putting into your soul? It's a good idea to do a review, a little bit of a breakdown. And so what makes a good or a bad song? Over to you, Ryan.
All right. So
had to put it in there.
So y'all remember in Wilson, we've talked about her at least once before, right? Remember her story?
Yep.
So funny, quick little story before we get into this song. This song popped up in my YouTube feed when it first came out, and I saw the title and I was like, oh no, Ann Wilson's gone. This nice Christian artist had gone off the deep end. She's singing about alcohol now and all that, like a country artist. But I listened to it.
You're such a Puritan.
But I listened to it because I have a country music loving family. And so when it comes to how it sounds, country music is my favorite type of music. Lyrics, not so much, but I love the sound of it. So I listened to it and I was like, maybe this will probably be bad lyrics, but maybe it'll sound good. And I was pleasantly surprised.
All right.
So let's dive in here. Verse 1. Turned the radio on my drive today, heard a whole lot of songs about a whole bunch of things. I knew all the words, but I couldn't relate because my 3 chords and the truth is, I ain't no preacher and I ain't no judge. My straight and narrow's been a little bit rough. Ain't trying to Bible belt kill the buzz because God loves country music. Now, that first part about heard a whole lot of songs on the radio about things I couldn't relate to. That's me and my family right there. Like I said, I grew up I have a country music loving family. Grew up, mom would drive us to school and everything. Country music would be on the radio, sing the songs together and all that. But, like my brother-in-law says, country music's all it's about is alcohol, girls, and trucks. you know,
Yeah.
Yep.
my nice Christian family can't really relate to that, but we enjoy the sound. And so that first part I really enjoy. But the second part, let me bring it up again real quick. So the second part about I ain't no preacher and ain't no judge. So we Christians are supposed to judge in a certain way.
Supposed to judge fruits, not
fruits,
not
yeah.
the destination of someone's soul,
Right.
but the fruits.
Right.
Because the same measure we use will be used on us.
Boy, I wonder where we heard that today.
It's almost like,
yeah,
I think that was the sermon.
I think that was a sermon
yeah,
today.
that was a sermon at our church.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the second half of that verse just seems a bit like she's trying to not step on any toes, trying to tread lightly.
Yeah,
maybe
I don't like it, but keep going.
Yeah, but
I understand it.
Yeah. Into the chorus, I've heard songs about Jack Daniels, which is a whiskey, songs about Jim Beam, another alcoholic beverage, heard songs about one night regrets, neon, and nicotine. I guess I'm just kind of fixed on the only thing that's ever fixed me. That's why I sing songs about Jesus instead of singing songs about whiskey.
No, I like that. I like that.
Me too. I
like that.
love that.
So the juxtaposition between the temporal things that sort of fill the gap for your momentary sorrow versus that which is the eternal wellspring of living water, I think is a very nice juxtaposition. That's a good job on Ann Wilson's part.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
And another reason why, so I have a love-hate relationship with country music, and part of the reason why is like, I'm not judging any of these artists' salvation or anything, but like singing about a lot of country artists claim to be Christian, but then I'm like, they sing about alcohol.
It's focused on butts, booze, and boondoggles.
Yeah,
No, thank you.
exactly. And I'm like, once again, not questioning their salvation, but I think like most of them have a very like surface level Christianity.
Can we get our mind out of the carnal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so one of the reasons I like this song so much is it really touches on some of my problems with country music. Like if you know, like there's one country song called Beer Can't Fix. And when you listen to the chorus, it literally sounds like a Christian song, but instead of like wherever they would put God, they just inserted beer. Like ain't nothing that a beer can't fix. Ain't no pain it can't wash away.
Yep.
No, it doesn't wash away. It numbs it. And then it
gonna-
comes back.
Exactly.
It's just going to temporarily fill, whereas it's like food fills us, but in partaking in the body, in the blood of Christ, and in going through with him the passion by sacrificing ourselves, sacrificing our desires as he did going to the cross, we can find that true fulfillment and truly be filled again. And
Right.
Ann Wilson kind of, in a brusque way, alludes to that in comparing the two. And I think it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I like it.
Right, verse 2, like when Johnny Cash met Billy Graham, went from raising hell to raising hands, that back pew brought me on back again. Praise God, I saw the light. Now my last call is when he calls me home. My dead-end street is now a street of gold. They say sing about the things you know, and heaven knows that's why. And
So
she sings the chorus.
My Johnny Cash is Billy Graham. It's saying I'm going to trade the things of this world, the avatars of this world, for those who are trying to push Christ. I'm going to renew my mind by focusing not on those temporal things, but on the eternal. And that's the whole verse. You know, I'm my dead end street is going to be not. I don't die and then become worm food. I die and I'm an eternal being and I get to live on the streets of gold.
Right.
That's good.
Has-
That's solid.
I should have looked into this before doing this, but has anyone looked into the story of Johnny Cash meeting Billy Graham and his conversion story? Just
I
out of
have not.
curiosity.
I have
You know
not.
what?
No.
It's been a while, but I did read about it.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash did sing, but then so did Elvis, a lot of gospel.
Yes.
So I'd have to go back and revisit that. Yeah, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, but I like that little mention of a Johnny Cash meeting Billy Graham and his conversion story there. And then she does something really cool with the last chorus here. Pretty much the same, but a bit different. I've heard songs about Jack Daniels, songs about Jim Beam. They'll fill your cup, but won't fill you up.
Yeah.
They ain't why I sing. I guess I'm just kind of fixed on the only thing that's ever fixed me. That's why I sing songs about Jesus instead of singing songs about whiskey. I just really like that line, they'll fill your cup but won't fill you up, because We all have a God-sized hole in our hearts, and a lot of things in this world can fill that temporarily and maybe satisfy us for a bit, but not for long. What did Jesus say? He who comes to me will never thirst again.
Mm.
Right?
And that's the purpose of thirst and hunger, is to remind us of the need for the blood and body of Christ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All the desires we have are something only God can truly fulfill.
Amen.
I love what you talked about one time, John Arthur. Like, why do we hunger? Why do we thirst? Why do we desire to love and to be loved? Because there's that God-shaped hole inside of all of us.
It was designed into us to point us to the real thing.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyone?
Interesting song.
Oh, yeah.
This has been the song review.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to do a 10-minute lightning round for the screw tape letters. So if you're just joining us, let's go ahead and go to the next cut, Mr. Producer. The screw tape letters. We're going chapter 25. Now, a quick overview. If you're just joining us, the screw tape letters are a series of correspondence between two demons, Screw Tape, the elder, and then Wormwood, the apprentice, the younger. In these correspondence, the elder Screw Tape encourages the younger Wormwood in how best to tempt Wormwood's human patient, a young man in the World War II era of Britain. And in this sort of conversation, Lewis explores the base temptations of man and how Satan and his tempters may indeed think about the existence of man and how they may tempt us using our nature against us. So in this chapter, chapter 25, Lewis gets to the horror of the same old thing. And I think that ties in very well with Ann Wilson's song. You will pick up on it as we go. So let's go ahead and jump in. Stop me, ask any questions as we go if we need to. He starts, "My dear Wormwood, the real trouble about the set your patient is living in is that it is merely Christian. They all have individual interests, of course, but the bond remains mere Christianity. What we want, if men become Christian at all, is to keep them in a state of mind I call Christianity and.
Ooh.
You know, Christianity and the crisis, Christianity and the new psychology, Christianity and the new order, Christianity and faith healing, Christianity and psychical research, Christianity and vegetarianism, Christianity and spelling reform. If they must be Christians, let them at least be Christians with a difference. Substitute the faith for some fashion with a Christian coloring. Work on their horror of the same old thing."
Really interesting.
So, real quick, if you've been following along with us, you'll know that in this part of the story, Wormwood's patient, this young man, has fallen in love with a Christian young lady. And he's courting these really smart Christians. And so what these demons are saying is, well, if we can't keep them away from Christ, let's pollute the well. Let's drop something in. It's Christianity and something else. Because each one of these Christian friends that this young man has, they all have an interest. So let's pique that interest in some way, shape, or form, and do a Christianity and, dare I say, Christianity and nationalism.
Oh.
I'm a big fan of nationalism. I am a Christian and I am a nationalist. I am not a Christian nationalist. I am a nationalist underneath being a Christian. I think America is the third best thing or fourth best thing to happen to the world. Like, really, if you call it creation, Christ himself, America, and then Great Britain, like those two empires, only because they have spread the gospel rather tangentially and with some knavish imbecility, they have actually moved the gospel forward. They provided a safe net for that. That's the only reason I put them up there. So on that note, I'm a nationalist because of the gospel that has proceeded forth. But Christianity and nationalism, Christian nationalism, you can quickly lose that. Now, I think that word means next to nothing, but I'm just bringing it out to say we want to make sure that Christianity is first. Often, the nationalist movement in America often is in alignment with Christianity. Just a note, something to bring up. Next cut, Mr. Producer. The horror of the same old thing. I love that phrase. This is one of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart, an endless source of heresies in religion, folly in counsel, infidelity in marriage, and inconsistency in friendship. The humans live in time and experience reality successively. To experience much of it, therefore, they must experience many different things. In other words, they must experience change. And since they need change, the enemy, being a hedonist at heart, has made change pleasurable to them, just as he has made eating pleasurable. But since he does not wish them to make change any more than eating, an end in of itself, he has balanced the love of change in them by the love of permanence. He has contrived to gratify both tastes together on the very world he has made by that union of change and permanence we call rhythm. He gives them the seasons, each season different, yet every year the same, so that spring is always felt as a novelty, yet always as the recurrence of an in memoriam theme. He gives them his church, a spiritual ear. They change from fast to feast, but it is the same feast as before. Heaven, I believe, will have rhythm, by the way. That's another conversation for another time. This is something that God has given. He wants us to change, but change in a way that ultimately drives us towards a permanent perfection. So he has given us a desire. We like change, but that change without the ability to stay changed, that is the scary thing. That is the thing that can trap someone. Next cut, Mr. Producer. This demand is valuable in various ways. In the first place, it diminishes pleasure while increasing desire. The pleasure of novelty is, by its very nature, more subject than any other to the law of diminishing returns. And continued novelty costs money, so that the desire for it spells avarice or unhappiness or both. And again, the more rapacious this desire, the sooner it must eat up all the innocent sources of pleasure and pass on those to the enemy forbids. Thus, by inflaming the horror of the same old thing, we have recently made the arts, for example, less dangerous to us than perhaps they ever have been, lowbrow and highbrow artists alike being now daily drawn into fresh and still fresh excessiveness of lasciviousness, unreason, cruelty, and pride. Finally, the desire for novelty is indispensable if we are to produce fashions or vogues. What's Lewis articulating here? If you can be distracted from the permanence of God's goodness by chasing after every shiny new object, especially if it's in your faith, someone who stays in the same church for 30 years, if it's a godly church, noted. If it's a godly, Bible-believing, teaching church, whatever the denomination, if they are truly seeking God, I would put my money on them having grown spiritually significantly more than the prude who's concerned about how this music sounds or this liturgy performs and has changed church every 6 months for the same 30 years. The one who stayed at the same church, served, was part of the change they wanted to be. That person will have grown insurmountably more than the person who changed churches every 6 months. All things being equal, I'd put my money on it, bar none. Next cut, Mr. Producer. The use of fashions in thought is to distract the attention of men from real dangers. We direct the fashionable outcry of each generation against those vices of which it is least in danger, and fix its approval on the virtue nearest to the vice that we are trying to make endemic. The game is to have them running about with fire extinguishers whenever there is a flood, and crowding to that side of the boat which is already near the gunwale. Thus, we make it fashionable to expose the dangers of enthusiasm at the very moment that they are really becoming worldly and lukewarm. A century later, when we are making them all Byronic and drunk with emotion, the fashionable outcry is directed against the dangers of mere, quote-unquote, understanding. Cruel ages are put to their guard against sentimentality, feckless and idle ones against respectability, lecherous ones against Puritanism. And whenever all men are really hasting to be slaves or tyrants, we make liberalism the prime bogey. You see what he's saying? What's the culture's cry right now? We are in the most licentious stage of the world. What is the biggest insult in the world? You're just a Puritan. You're just a prude. Why can't you allow me to live my way?
Right.
When we are the furthest from God, and then when we are the most puritanical and we are overextending towards legalism, then we complain about frivolity and sensuality.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a ditch argument that he's laying out here. Next cut, Mr. Producer. But the greatest triumph of all is to elevate this, his horror of the same old thing into a philosophy, so that nonsense in the intellect may reinforce corruption in the will. It is here that the general evolutionary or historical character of modern European thought, partly our work, comes in so useful. The enemy loves platitudes. Of a proposed course of action, he wants men, so far as I can see, to ask very simple questions. Is this righteous? Is this prudent? Is it possible? Now, we can keep men asking, is it in accordance with the general movement of our time? Is it progressive or is it reactionary? In this way, or is this the way that history is going? They will neglect the relevant question. Is it progressive? Progressive towards what? Progressive from what? What is the Conservative Party conserving? If we're going to focus on whether or not it's conservative as opposed to whether or not it's godly, Satan has won. It's not about the Conservative Party. It's about God. Next cut, Mr. Producer. And the questions they do ask are, of course, unanswerable, for they do not know the future, and what the future will be depends very largely on just those choices which they now invoke the future to help them make. As a result, while their minds are buzzing in this vacuum, we have the better chance to slip in and bend them to the action we have decided upon. And great work has already been done. Once they knew that some changes were for the better and others for the worst, and others again indifferent, we have largely removed this knowledge. For the descriptive adjectives unchanged, we have substituted the emotional adjective stagnant. We have trained them to think of the future as a promised land which favored heroes attain, not as something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour, whatever he does, whoever he is. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. We need to be less focused about what the Tucker Carlsons or Candace Owens or the, what this podcast or anyone else's podcast is about. We need to be more focused on not what the age is doing or where it's going, but on the North Star of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Who is God? What are conservatives conserving? What are progressives progressing to? Need to ask that question. Like, are we conserving the American ideal, or are we conserving liberty under Christ, which is what the American ideal was founded on? Question for you to think about this week. Final thoughts. We got 30 seconds.
Actually, you addressed it right there. Is one of the things I always say is truth.
Truth.
You have very few truth tellers anymore. And what you have is a society that's willing to buy the talking points without trying to see if that talking point is truth.
Buy truth, do not sell it.
That's right. And so I would say that my biggest thing is, what is truth? Search for truth. Hold on to truth. Buy truth with all your heart.
Steve, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think, or I believe that what Iran is doing in international waters is definitely comparable to what was going on in the 1780s, which is piracy on international waters.
Absolutely.
I really do.
This is normal. This is good that we're stopping them.
Yes, I agree.
Charlie.
I've enjoyed the show. I'll just keep it there because I know we're running on time.
Mr. Producer.
Same as Charlie. Really enjoyed everything we talked about today.
Who is truth? That's the question I'm going to leave you with. Who is truth? Pontius Pilate asked, what is truth? He should have asked, who is truth?
True.
Truth was standing in front of Pontius Pilate when he said, what is truth? Christ came to testify to the truth, but he was the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by him.
Amen.
This week, make sure that you are conserving. I hope if you're listening, you're conservative. If not, I'd beseech you to look for truth. And I believe if we're both looking at truth, we'll arrive at the same person. If you are conservative, what are you conserving? What are you conserving and what are you doing? Are you conserving the Republican Party or are you conserving truth himself? Because I'm sorry, 2028, not a great Republican, or sorry, 2008, not a good Republican Party. 2012, not a great Republican Party. There's nothing to conserve there. It had fallen apart. Principles under liberty of Christ. What are you conserving? Think about that this week. With that said, we got nothing else for you. We love you so much.